I think rural America is very similar. When we talk about our situation here in southeastern Ohio, I think it applies to a lot of people out there. And I'm guessing there are a lot of people who, when I say that there are too many kids who slip through the cracks in this part of America who don't get a chance to play ball in college, I'm guessing there are a lot of people out there right now that are nodding their heads in agreement, saying, my gosh, we have that happen too.
I've came to that conclusion probably over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that the physical development of our athletes, it's just as important as the skill development, if not more. And I'm almost to the point where I'm saying now that it's more important to develop our athletes other than, as infielders or as outfielders.
Stop looking at food and drink in such a way that it's just, I do this for pleasure, but look at it as fuel. When your mindset is food and drink is fuel, and I challenged him. I'm like, look, I'm going to say food is no longer just for pleasure. Food and drink is for fuel to my body, and therefore I'm going to eat and drink the kinds of things that are going to fuel me for the goals that I have. It's episode 7, folks, and this one is a bonus. We're releasing it in the same week as episode 6 as a two-parter, because this week Pat and I have been discussing the calendar year for the player development program, or what a sample calendar year might look like from our perspective. Now, we understand that this is strictly theoretical. We understand that we have not worked out all the details about how this logistically is going to take place, but that's what a brainstorm is, and that's kind of what these last 2 episodes have been, just simply brainstorming about what we could envision a player development program to look like. It's a dream, but we believe that it's a dream that could come true. And if you believe it, then jump on board with us, enjoy this conversation, because episode 7 begins right now. Well, let's get right into it. We talked last time about the calendar year for a player development program, and we got as far as September and October. We talked about signing kids up in August and getting coaches together, parents together, getting people together and helping them understand the year-round vision and mission of this type of program, and talking to the kids about how in the fall months, particularly when we say fall months, we're talking about September, October, we may provide a couple of days a week opportunities for you to get together, to have some instruction for an hour, and then maybe an hour of pickup games, hour of pickup ball, which gives coaches a chance to take notes and learn about what other kinds of things we might need to be teaching these guys. But it's just a fun time. It's an opportunity. To play some different kind of ball than perhaps they played in the summertime. Had a month of nothing at all in August, and we're talking about kids that aren't playing other sports for the most part. They're not playing football or soccer or cross country or golf or any other sports that might be offered during that time of year. Or if they are playing those sports and they still have time and they want to come and do this, then it's available for them on a voluntary basis.
Right. And I think there's a big difference in playing what we would, define as organized sports and playing in this model where we're saying, you get together and you get to play with your friends, and the stress isn't there, and it's just easy to go out and enjoy playing the game, and we've talked about it. And
that's what fall ball should be, in my opinion.
I think
I know there are a lot of fall leagues, a lot of fall baseball and softball leagues, and sometimes they end up becoming. Every time you play, if you're a competitor, you're out there to play to win. And we're not saying you don't play to win. Every time we played a pickup game, by gosh, we played to win. You just told a story about your own son Jeremiah a couple weeks ago about how he was playing hard in wiffle ball because his team was losing.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. If you're a competitor, you're going to play to win. But it's a different stress level in the fall. And it should be.
Yeah, it's more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So someone might be thinking to themselves, well, you're having them play too much baseball. We've heard you say before, Chris and Pat, that you don't want them to play year round, that there should be some time when their arms can recover from a stressful season of a lot of ball. And we agree with you. We're saying that when November comes, this is, again, we're outlining this as just a brainstorm type of map of what a year round schedule might look like. But if we have the facility, that's one thing, that's one of the obstacles to this, is we don't really have any facilities right now. That's why otherwise we'd be doing it right now, But if we had the facilities and the opportunity to the places, the resources to do this, we would say, hey, come November, put the gloves on the shelf, put the bats in the closet for a little bit. We're going to put the balls down, and we're going to provide opportunities for strength training and conditioning for everyone in the program. Yes, everyone in the program, including an 8-year-old, including 16, 17-year-old. If you have the availability, it's not mandatory, it's not required, but it's offered because this is a huge part of developing you as an athlete. Now, before you start throwing your hands up when I say yes, an 8-year-old, I'm not talking about get an 8-year-old underneath the 45-pound bar and get him to squat or her to squat. There are different ways that you teach strength and conditioning, and you prepare kids for making the proper movements, when the time comes for them to be able to lift weights as a grown young boy or a grown young girl, coming through puberty, when their muscles are forming, they're becoming more of an adult, getting more of an adult body. But kids, here we go. Kids these days, they're not getting as much exercise as they used to.
They're not.
They're not putting up hay. They're not out there swimming every day. They're not. I mean, let's be honest. This is a different world we live in. They're not getting the same kind of activity. And there's a lot of conversation out there about this, in relative to physical education programs in schools, communities providing recreational things for kids, opportunities for kids to get out and run around a little bit, play some tag. And when you have a whole generations of kids that aren't getting as much activity, then here are some ways that you can provide it for them. Bring them into a setting where you can do some body weight strength training work.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt anybody to do body weight strength training work.
No, absolutely not. I think the development, the beginning development that you were talking about there a second ago, that's required for everybody. Everyone should go through that. Just to understand how their body should move and how they should feel when they're picking up weight. It's very important. But I think as people are listening out there right now, they might be saying this is over the top, or you want me to work out my 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but it's really not much different than hitting him 50 ground balls. Mm-hmm. I watched, or I didn't watch.
We have to start thinking of this as part of the game.
Absolutely.
It is a fundamental part of the game, getting stronger.
It is. I've came to that conclusion probably over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that maybe 3. The physical development of our athletes, it's just as important as the skill development, if not more. And I'm almost to the point where I'm saying now that it's more important to develop our athletes other than, as infielders or as outfielders or as hitters. Sure. It's more important.
It's going to be easier for them to pick up later how to field a ground ball, how to hit a ball, how to throw. I mean, throwing, you can develop some bad habits that are hard to break early on. But those skills that we're talking about are a lot easier to pick up later than it is to pick up getting stronger, proper nutrition. Man, that's a hard one.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
it's so big, this is something that I'm trying to kind of put together for my kids too. Actually, this year I've really come around on dieting. Yeah. And when I say dieting, I don't mean the traditional what people think of dieting.
Yeah, cutting a bunch of stuff out. No, I mean, there are things that you should cut out. I mean, when people think of dieting, they think of losing weight.
Yes, and that's not what we're doing. Yeah,
I'm talking about nutrition.
Yeah, and it's complex, and it's confusing, and it's hard. It's something that as coaches and parents we need to learn, and we need to spend some time in. But
what you're talking about learning is to make better choices.
Yes, healthier.
There are better choices.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a better way to think about food and drink. We think about food and drink in relation to pleasure. Yes. What makes me feel good? What do I want today? And I drink this because it tastes good. I eat this because it tastes good. And that's a benefit of food. But when that's the only mindset that you have going into nutrition, going into eating or drinking something, then of course you're going to choose Mountain Dew over water. Or of course you're going to choose Little Debbie snack cakes over something, green beans,
or I would say a banana,
vegetables, or a banana,
or an apple.
Yeah,
and I would say from my own experience, I actually went to the doctor. It was a little personal health information here. I went to the doctor at the beginning of the year, and my cholesterol was sky high, and I recognized that I was eating way too much sugar.
Yeah,
and so I cut added sugar out of my diet.
Yeah.
I wasn't eating a lot of added sugar, but what I found was when I would go to eat a banana, after about maybe a month of not eating added sugar, when I would go to eat a banana or an apple, it tasted so sweet. Oh, it was so good. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
And actually, one of our friends made us something called, I think it's called chai pudding, chai seeds.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This stuff is so good. It looks horrible. It looks nasty, but it is so good.
My daughter puts those kinds of things together all the time.
Oh man, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was just telling everybody about it. I was showing pictures like, oh, what is that? But man, it was so good. But diet is so big, and our kids are. If you think about a can of Pepsi, and if you go and you measure out the sugar that's in a can of Pepsi and just look at it, just pour it in a cup and see how much sugar is actually in a can of Pepsi. It is so bad. It is so bad for you. And pop soda was made to be treated like an ice cream, like a treat as opposed to a beverage. Yeah,
people are they're intaking foods and drinks into their bodies as their normal daily nutrition today, and it's not intended for that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it starts with the mindset and choices, you deciding to make the choice to think about food in a different way. I tried, listen, and I know it's hard. When I was a high school baseball coach, and we were taught, we would do strength training in the off season, and I would always, at the end of our sessions, I would pull the guys together, and I would say, listen, everything that you've just done in the past hour was awesome. It was phenomenal. You busted your tails in here. There's sweat all over this floor, Some of you right now, though, you're going to go out of here and you're going to drive through McDonald's. And you're going to ruin everything you just did. Some of you, I said, listen, guys, you have got to start realizing that what you eat and what you drink goes hand in hand, not only with your strength training, your strength and conditioning, but with your athletic performance. And what I'm saying is, stop looking at food and drink in such a way that it's just, I do this for pleasure, but look at it as fuel. Mm-hmm. When your mindset is, food and drink is fuel. And I challenged him. I'm like, look, just try it for 3 months. Just put dates on the calendar. Start tomorrow and go out 3 months and say, for this long, I'm going to say food is no longer just for pleasure. Food and drink is for fuel to my body. And therefore, I'm going to eat and drink the kinds of things that are going to fuel me for the goals that I have. And what are my goals? Well, whatever it is that you're preparing for, whatever season, whatever sport you're preparing for, or if it's just, heck, if you're not playing anything and you just want to feel good,
right?
You'd be amazed at how much better you feel on a day-to-day basis, how much less sleep your body needs because it is more energetic because you're putting in better nutrients into it than just, a lot of stuff that we eat just turns to sugar.
Yeah.
It just turns to sugar and fats that are unnecessary for us. And I'll tell you, why are we spending so much time on this right now? Because every parent wants, and every kid wants it too. We want the best that they can possibly be athletically to be, to be available to them. We want them to become the best that they possibly can be. And yet, this is the one area of their development, not just, I almost said athletic development, but their development as people.
Right.
We're raising young adults here. They're going to be adults one day, which means they're going to be making choices one day for longer life, for better life, for living their best life and their most healthy life, regardless of whether or not they're playing a sport. But because we're talking in the context of sports, this is what we desire, yet we let them get away with eating whatever they want. Yep. And we let them, we fill them with sugar and things. And I'm not saying just not ever give your kid a treat, but look at it that way. Mm-hmm. Once in a while, a treat is good. But other than that, get them, as they get into a routine of making better choices. Well, I'll tell you this, when they're younger, those choices are yours, mom and dad. You make the choice for them. You're the ones filling the cupboard. You're the one that's going to the store and buying stuff. So if they don't have it in the house, they can't eat it or drink it.
Yeah, you can make
if there's no
subtle
pop
changes
in the
like that.
house,
Yeah.
they're not going to have it at home anyway.
Right. I've struggled with that. Me and Chastity, my wife, because we've kind of went on this journey of, trying to eat a little bit better, and we recognize how bad our kids eat. And at the same time, you don't want to just strip things away from them that you've allowed them to partake in all their life. But,
I think if it's a habit that they've developed since birth, because mom and dad have lived that way as well, and we're all guilty of that. I shouldn't say all, but a lot of people are. I'd say the majority of people in this country are probably guilty of that in some way. Then you help them gradually to wean off of that mindset.
And what have we said, as coaches, if we want someone to follow a pattern, or we want someone to learn something, the best way to get them to learn is to model it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it starts there.
Yeah, it does.
But I think that a lot of people are, we brought up strength training and diet, but you said it. These are conversations that we need to have if we're going to allow our kids to meet their potential as adults and as athletes.
Yeah.
So it's big.
I think when they first listen to you and I on these podcasts talking about, less games and not being so intense as coaches and kind of sitting back and letting them play a little bit, some unstructured free play. I think maybe some people probably got into their mind this idea that you and I had, this plan to just take away all the organized part of it, all the organization away from it, and just let them be, let them go out there and have fun or whatever. But now it's almost like you're seeing that, no, that's not what we're saying.
Right.
We want to help you develop these young athletes to be the best that they can be. And and you can do all this in a fun way. But what youth league, what organization, travel or rec league or whatever, offers nutrition counseling and helps people with plans, and says, hey, if your family, if you want, and recognizes that as part of the program. This is part of our youth baseball and softball program. Hey, this is going to help you be a better athlete. And so if you'd like, come in, we'll sit down together and we can talk about your current, the current ways that you guys go about choosing the foods you eat and the things that you drink in the house and things like that. And maybe we can help you with an accountability plan, that will be good for the whole family. And then we'll see how that translates to your child's performance in March and April and May.
Yeah.
In June and July.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
guarantee you it translates.
I'm convinced it would. And, the same goes for strength and conditioning. It would as well. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was called Ahead of the Curve with Jonathan Gellner.
Gellner, yeah.
You know that?
Yep, listen to that one regularly.
The first time I heard it, but he had Zach Deckett on. The author of Movement Over Maxes. And he said something, I wrote it down. I wanted to use it. He said that the skills that we work on our athletes with, dribbling a basketball or, throwing a football or fielding a baseball, hitting a baseball, things like that, hitting a softball. Those are like drops of water, and our physical condition, the way that we train ourselves physically and the way that we eat, and keep ourselves nutrients in our bodies. That's like the container that we can put those drops of water in. So do we want, a gallon bucket container? Or do we want a 5-gallon bucket container?
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, wow, that's a great way to look at it.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and do you want a container that has holes in it?
That's a good point. Right. Yeah.
That's going to leak out all the hard work. Because that's what I was trying to explain to those kids who were going to drive through McDonald's after working out real hard for an hour is you're just going to ruin everything you just did.
Yeah.
And man, that's I like that analogy.
Yeah, I loved it.
So
I thought it was good.
Well, something else that we could do between November and February is if you run a player development program and it's you have all ages. So we talked about how it is important for kids who want to play the sport that they're playing in college they need to learn about that process. And so when you have kids that are coming into age 15, 16, sophomore, junior in high school, really freshmen too, they should start thinking about these kinds of things. There could be training and assistance for what the recruiting process looks like and the kinds of things that you need to begin thinking about and doing, because a lot of times I've run across this quite a bit in our area in particular. And honestly, I run across this with kids who did not play travel ball. This is one area where I think a lot of travel programs have more material, more understanding, more exposure to the fact that college coaches are out there and this is what they're looking for. This is where they're going to be. And so there's a little bit of talk about I don't think all travel programs do it well. Some do it really well, but I've run into a lot of kids in Appalachia who grew up playing only recreation ball, or as they got older, recreation ball transitioned into American Legion ball, perhaps. And they get to their senior year of high school and they go and talk to their coach about, I want to play ball in college. And the coach says, well, what have you done to get recruited? They don't, and they don't know. They don't know how to go about it.
Right.
I actually had a kid who was a freshman here at Ohio University who was a good ball player in high school come to me last year, and he ran into me here in Schoonover Center, and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." So we sat down and talked together, and he said, "I miss baseball like crazy, And he said, "I thought I could walk on here at OU, and I went to the walk-on tryouts and didn't make it." It's harder than people think.
Oh man.
You know, and this is a guy who was he was top player on a local team. I mean, he's a really good player.
It's a whole other episode right there.
and so now he doesn't want to stop playing, and he could play. This is someone, if he wants to play, he should be playing in college because he has the ability to play, but he hadn't done any of the work that it takes. People don't realize that to get recruited, for the 90% of the people who get recruited, it takes more work on your end than it does on the end of the college recruiters and the coaches that are out there looking for people. The top 10%, the ones who have just ungodly talent, they're just really they're standing out, and there is no doubt that they're the ones that are causing all the waves in every league. Everybody knows this is the top player. They're all district every year of high school. They are just without a doubt a standout. Colleges will find that person. But whenever someone says to me, "Oh, if you're good enough, colleges will find you," I cringe when I hear that, because it's not true.
Yeah.
There are so many kids that are really good that could play college ball. They're not going to be found unless they do what it takes to get seen. And so you don't have to play for a travel team to do this. I mean, you could play American Legion ball, you could play recreation ball and do this, but there are things that you got to do. You got to learn how to draft an email to college coaches. You got to learn what it is that you're looking for. What do you want to major in? Because really, that's the most important thing. Going to college is the most important thing. Playing ball is secondary to that. And if you could do both, and you could actually get some money for your sport, and no one's getting a lot of money to play baseball or softball in college, but if you could, and you had the opportunity to play, and the most important thing in that is your education.
Yeah, and coaches respect that and look for that out of players.
Absolutely.
Have that plan and
absolutely
commitment to a career.
Yeah. There are schools. For instance, there are a couple schools that wanted Kaylee to come and play. Our daughter, they didn't have her major, and so she, even though there may have been a better offer somewhere else, well, the most important thing to her is what she's going to study, what she wants to do with the rest of her life when softball's over, and so that's the key. I mean, that kind of education, and we'll get into recruiting, in the next episode when we have Brock on, but the help with that, getting parents in a room with their kids and just outlining it. This is, if you're a sophomore in high school, this is what you should be doing. You should already be signed up with the NCAA eligibility and compliance office. And here's how you do that. Here's how much it costs. Do you realize it costs $75 to be eligible to get an NCAA scholarship. Well, you need to make sure that you have an ID for when that coach says, what's your NCAA ID? If you go to a showcase and they're like, are you signed up with the NCAA? You don't want to look at them like dumbfounded. Like, what are you talking about? It happens though, because people don't know that this is something you need to do. So all of those things are things that could be part of a player development program. And when we say that we're doing things year round, this is the kind of thing we're doing year round.
Sure.
In the wintertime, when there's no baseball or softball to be played, we're sitting down, we're offering a once a month meeting or something like that for parents and for their kids who are a little bit older in the program who may want to consider playing in college. Well, here's what you got to do. And video creation is part of that. And so we're going to help you create some video. Whatever position you play, we're going to put some showcase video together for you. We're going to get in a cage with some cameras. We're going to start getting video out there. We're going to teach you how to create your own YouTube channel. We're going to teach you how to submit these links to coaches so that they can actually see, how long should the video be? What kinds of things should I put in there? What kinds of things should I tell a coach? It all needs to be driven by you, the player, because coaches they're not interested in hearing from parents. They're interested in hearing from you. But all of this is stuff that we can teach you. And if there are kids, let me ask you this. If there are kids that, let's just talk about this area. Small town, rural Ohio. It could apply to small town, rural Indiana, Michigan, wherever, Kentucky, wherever you're at when you're listening to this. So far, we're a handful of episodes in, and I've seen about 8 different states where people are listening to our podcast right now. So we're starting to grow, Pat.
All right.
We're starting to grow. So wherever you're listening from.
Getting closer to retirement. Sorry, go ahead.
Keep pumping those brakes. We would love to get there, wouldn't we? Let's get some sponsors on this. But what I think rural America is very similar. When we talk about our situation here in southeastern Ohio, I think it applies to a lot of people out there. And I'm guessing there are a lot of people who, when I say that there are too many kids who slip through the cracks in this part of America who don't get a chance to play ball in college, I'm guessing there are a lot of people out there right now that are nodding their heads in agreement saying, my gosh, we have that happen too.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we can help with.
Yeah.
This is what player development does.
Yep, I agree. And I don't think people realize how many, D3 athletes are actually good enough to play D1.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Right. And they didn't because of things like this.
I really want Brock to talk about this guy because he got a chance to catch a bullpen with him last year. But there was a player that graduated from Aldous and Broadus University, which is where my son Brock is playing. And he graduated the year before Brock arrived. But last year when he came back to visit for homecoming, he went up, worked out with him and threw a bullpen, and Brock caught him. He got to tell me about him. His name is Randy Dobnak. And Randy went to a Division II college, was a pretty darn good pitcher at that Division II college. Low 90s, fastball, really nice hard breaking slider, good off-speed stuff. And after he graduated, played some independent ball, got picked up by an independent team, and since then got picked up. He actually got signed about a year later by the Twins. So he began this summer in high A ball in the Minnesota Twins organization. He got quickly moved up after he went like 6-0, gave up. I mean, his ERA it was incredible. I mean, it was like less than 1. Got moved up to Double-A. In Double-A, his ERA ended up, he pitched several games in Double-A. I think 7 or 8 games in Double-A. ERA was under 2. And a week ago, he got moved up to Triple-A, to the Twins Triple-A program. I read some tweets last night as Minnesota's considering what their postseason prospects are going to look like. Actually read a tweet last night. I took a screenshot of it and sent it to Brock that said the Twins could have a Dobnak to help them battle the Indians in the postseason.
I was going to say, as an Indians fan, I'm not too happy about that.
And I tell you, it's so exciting because this is a Cinderella story. I mean, this is a Division II kid who's now, he's developed even, and you get stronger as you're at your best when you're 24, 25 years old, and he's probably 23, 24 right now, but he's running that fastball up to 96. And he's good. He's crafty. Not a strikeout pitcher, gets guys to ground out and pop up, but I'll let Brock talk about him because I know that he'll probably want to say, talk about his experience with him.
The question I'm going to ask Brock is, why in the world wasn't he on our old man's roster?
Because he was pitching for the Twins.
Well, we could flew him in or something.
Right. Yeah, bring these ringers in. So yeah, we made it to about February. We're almost to the season, aren't we?
We're ready to begin playing some organized baseball.
Let's talk about it for a second here. So in March comes. When March comes, the older kids who are playing school ball, you're talking about sanctioned school ball. So whatever your state sanctions, if it sanctions middle school ball, then this includes middle school ball. But in our area, most of the schools' sanctioned programs are high school. When they're playing for the schools, then they're unable to play any other type of recreational or outside ball at that point in an organized way. So you keep your hands off of those kids until their high school season is over. But the younger kids will go ahead and start playing. So what kind of games, how are we going to create teams, and what are we looking at when we actually start getting organized?
Yeah.
You got any thoughts about it?
Well, I do. I've always liked them. I think the organization, the Big Ben organization that
Which the Big Bend, when you talk about Big Bend, because you've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, you're talking about the area along the Ohio River that covers most of the southeasternmost part of Ohio, and then also West Virginia, right?
Yeah, I think I once said that's the league in southeastern Ohio. I may have.
It's one of the leagues in southeastern Ohio.
But when I think about, it's the league in the southeastern.
You can't get any further southeastern than that.
But we have an issue with numbers. We've done things a certain way for a long time, and people are turned off. Parents are turned off when you initiate change like this. Another thing is, the drive from Tuppers Plains, Ohio to Middleport, Ohio isn't nearly as long as what it used to be. So what I'm getting at is
how long is it?
I don't know, 30 minutes, 25 minutes.
So, but a 30-minute drive to get to some place to play a game or practice, isn't that big of a deal?
And I think that's the big thing for me is practice. And our fall ball program in southeastern Ohio, it's kind of
people come from a pretty good distance.
They do, and so it kind of runs like this, a little different. But in my mind, I've always been real fond of the way that the Athens Sandlot League separated the teams. It's an evaluation process and then a draft. Yeah, the evaluation and draft, and I think it's real easy over time to kind of allow some of the principle in that to deteriorate. And you maybe a team calls you and says, "Hey, we want to be in the league," and
and that's happened.
Yeah, and you only have 3 teams, so you want another, so you let them in the league,
or we're all from the same town, and these kids need to carpool.
Right.
That's happened.
Right. Yeah. So, I understand that, but I really like the idea of, because what happens is your teams are mostly equal. So what's that do for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of parity.
There's parity. So you get opportunities against, advanced pitching, opportunities against, inexperienced pitching. You get, everyone kind of gets the opportunity to play different positions. The games are a lot closer, mostly, which
they are,
which makes it more fun.
And the team that wins the regular season, has the best record in the regular season, doesn't necessarily win the end of season tournament.
Sure,
you're amazed. Or if you started out really poor, with you lost your first 6 games or whatever, you may find that that's the team that wins the tournament at the end of the season. It just depends on how those other kids develop.
Yeah, and I would say that's actually how things work in sports as you get older anyway. I think a lot of youth, I'm speaking from a baseball perspective, obviously, a lot of youth teams that are really good, they're really good because they have really good pitching.
Yeah, you're going to find that all the way through
2 or 3, but when you're in
the MLB, even
but even in the MLB, okay, what I would say is they have more than one good pitcher. Right?
Yeah, you have to.
And a team can't go on a field and say, well, we've got this guy on the mound, so we don't have to worry about playing defense or hitting the ball. I feel like it's more. It promotes more of a competitive mentality that the kids will know that they just can't rely on one guy or 2 guys to carry them through the season. That they're going to have to win with a 3 and a 4, and you get rotation principles and things like that into it. But overall, I just think it provides a better gaming experience for our kids. And it's not just youth baseball. Everyone's always talking about how do we make baseball more relatable to our current society, and everyone wants to change the game. And I don't think it's necessarily changing the game. I think it's changing our approach to the game. Major League Baseball is making all these rules. They're taking rules away, adding pitch counts and things like that, which we can get into that another time. But the point is, we always think we have to change the game, and it's a game that's been around for a long time, and it's been fun for a long time. But when it stops being fun, it's probably not the game's fault. It's probably something external.
Man, that's a great point.
Yeah,
that's a great point. So you're saying, and I agree with this, you're saying that in that period where it's time to select the teams, that teams would be created based on age, of course, and skill level as much as possible, right? That we would find a way to evaluate kids and then just go with it. And then you go back through and you look and you contact your kids and you start practicing. And I could see in an ideal world where we had the facilities to make it happen, that every team has a chance to practice 3 or 4 times a week before you start playing games. Once the practice schedule is determined, it comes back to the idea that you're getting a lot of good practice in at the beginning of this season with your team. So it's not just individual skills now. We're transitioning into learning how to play with the team, learning team concepts and practicing as a team, and starting to teach these younger kids that are out there on the field together the team concepts, bunt defenses and first and third defenses, and how to adjust on the field based on the hitter, and what does it look like to play normal depth, to play a little deeper. What's no doubles defense look like? What does halfway look like? What does playing in look like? What does how do pitchers? What kind of balls should pitchers learn to field, and how should that happen? Baseball, softball. There's different ways to go about it. But you do it. You cover all those things, and we're confident that coaches are covering all those things during this time period before they get out there and play games. There's not going to be a question that we practiced all this stuff. And then as a leadership, you and I, if we're leading this thing, we're making sure we're touching base with coaches. Hey, whenever we're sitting down having coffee with some guy, who coaches in our player development program, just happen to ask him, hey, you guys go over first and third defense yet? Tell me what you're doing with that. Mm-hmm. How you calling it out? What's your second baseman doing? How they're pretty good at reading that runner at third base. Are they able to cut it off, or is that a skill that maybe you need to work on a little bit more? Just talking ball. Helping people just develop in every possible way.
Yep. Yeah, I think as people's listening, there are probably a lot of red flags are popping up, and they're saying, "I don't think this is going to work because of this or or that." And we're not deaf to that. I mean, we understand that it's a transformation of the way that we think and the way that we approach the game. And I think a lot of the challenges that we think about are going to be taken care of, because what we really want to do is we want to rejuvenate our communities, mostly the kids in those communities, their love and passion for the game of baseball.
Yeah.
For the game of softball. Softball's pretty strong right now, I think, in our area. But for baseball, I feel like the numbers are dwindling a little bit. And if we can rejuvenate that passion, our concepts like these become more attainable, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Before we finish here, I want to try to clearly outline something that I alluded to here, just to give people something in their minds to compare with the current structure. Okay. So I said that younger age groups would probably play less tournaments, maybe 1 or 2 tournaments, but our goal would be to schedule those younger age groups games versus quality opponents. And so there are younger age groups out there that have good travel teams. There's some good rec ball teams out there. And if we're running a whole different program, a player development program, and we got a handful of younger kids teams, we would schedule them some games, maybe on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which allows for greater control of scheduling, maybe, and then maintain the priority of practicing during the week. So your mindset is, hey, our weekdays, our weeknights are for developing and for practicing, for instruction, and then we get to weekends. That's when we're going to play games primarily. But the older age groups, say the older age groups, when we're talking 15U, 16U, 17U, 18U, when they finish their high school seasons and they begin their in-season schedule, their in-season playing time, so that would be June and July, we would continue the idea of having at least 3 practices a week. So practicing 3 times a week. And then here's what I could see. I would love to see this kind of thing happen. And I would love to invite college coaches to come and be part of this, to watch this as well. Because I think this kind of thing can happen. I really do. I think, and you got to have some quality teams if you're going to invite college coaches to come and watch this too. You got to have players that they really want to see, and that's why they go to all the big travel tournaments, because they know they're going to find somebody there that they want to see. Yep. But if you really developed and you had some really high caliber ball players on these teams, and you invited other teams from other parts of the state or the tri-state area, wherever you live, to come and be part of, say, a weekend series where you're putting together 4 teams, and those 4 teams are going to play each other on a weekend. So here's what it would look like. If we have our team, if our player development program team is we're the Pat Martins, that's the name of our team, and we're really good. We want to be good. We want to be competitive. We want to play competitive ball. We invite 3 other teams to come and join us for the weekend, and we say, hey, we're going to have umpires here for the whole weekend, and we're going to have baseballs, and that's all we need to pay for. So here's what it costs, and that cost is significantly lower than that team is going to pay if they go play in a perfect game tournament, pastime tournament, Under Armour, any of those tournaments they're playing in. You have a facility where they can play. Every team would play 4 games between Friday and Sunday. So every team would play 4 games. And perhaps you could use this as a structure. You match up the 4 teams. So you say, okay, your team is going to play, Team A is going to play Team C, and Team B is going to play Team D. And you're going to play a 3-game series against the same team on Friday and Saturday. So maybe you would begin on Friday, and then you'd have the rest of your games on Saturday. So you play a 3-game series. So what does this sound like? A little bit like college ball, right? Or a little bit more like what ball is going to be like as you get older. And out of that 3-game series, so you have 2 3-game series going on. So between Friday and Saturday, you got to find a place to play 6 games. All right. So after that 3-game series, what you do is you match up the 2 winners of the series and the 2 losers of the series, and they play on Sunday. You've got 2 games on Sunday. Yep. You play between the 2 winners and the 2 losers, and you play for first, second, third, and fourth, basically. So that's how you go about your whole weekend. But here's something else that I love about this idea. These are the things that I get excited about. In this kind of structure, every team before every game would take on-field BP. Why? Because you'd have time to. Every team before every game would get a fresh field. We'd drag it and line it, get it ready. Every team before every game would take in and out, pregame, infield, outfield, that you rarely ever get to do in travel ball. Right. You go to travel tournaments, you can hit some ground balls in front of your dugout, hit some fly balls on your side of the outfield, and that's the extent of it. You don't get a chance to do that pregame, and then you play the game. And the kids go home, or they go to their hotel, or they go stay with host families that are like, hey, you know what, we'll invite some kids, to stay in our home, and they get to interact with each other, and they get to hang out. And I'm telling you, if you want something that feels more like the college experience, if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, and you want your summer ball to feel more like the college experience, that's the college experience. That's what you're doing when you get to college. You're playing a 4-game weekend series, and that's what it feels like and looks like more. Now, as I said, people got to buy into this.
Right.
It's an invitational model of playing games as opposed to a tournament model. And if the more people buy into this, the greater competition is going to be, because the better the teams are. And I will tell you this. I'll full disclosure here. The tournament, the travel team that my son played for during his 18U year, he did this one weekend. The Midland organization out of Cincinnati, they do this. They play tournaments also, but they have their own facility. They got 2 fields at their own facility. It's an incredible organization. They've had a lot of kids that were like sons of Reds players that have played. You look on the board and you see a lot of familiar last names on people who have played for the Midland Redskins, Midland Tribes, Midland whatever, any Midland team. But they have teams from 13U up. And his 18U year, he went and played basically a round robin And you knew going in, you knew how many games you were going to play, you knew who you're going to play. And what that also allowed you to do as coaches was say, well, here's what our pitching lineup's going to look like. We know who we're going to play.
Yep.
Here's who's pitching when. We knew we could basically control that a lot better. And so I think, when we talk about, this isn't just something that we haven't thought through a little bit. I think this could work. I really think it could work. Again, it's not going to start working tomorrow.
Yeah. You can't look at it how things are right now.
You can't.
You have to understand how it's going to mature, or envision how it's going to mature over the next, once you start to the next 4 or 5 years after that, and so forth and so on. But I'd be really interested in seeing what people that are really into the travel ball environment and whose kids play a lot of travel ball think of that idea. Because to me,
I know the first thing they're going to say is, well, who's going to be the guinea pigs that aren't going to have any college coaches there to watch them? Because early, if you make this transition and you start doing it, they're not going to get the exposure.
Right.
I mean, so therefore, maybe you do a little bit of both, right?
Yes.
You say, hey, instead of going to 8 tournaments, we're going to go to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then the rest of our weekends, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And you gradually work your way into it.
Yeah. And I think you've said, before that you said blow it up, blow up what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think it could work that way, and I think that makes the transition easier. But probably in a more idealistic manner, it's going to be a slow evolution, and you pick up this concept, and you just kind of add it to what you do, and over the course of the time, this is where we want to get. That's probably how it's going to be. But you can't think about that's where most of the obstacles come from. People are never going to go for this. Well, that's as they develop, as our parents and as we develop as parents and coaches towards our mentality in regards to baseball and softball and youth sports, I think we'll begin to understand how something like this makes more sense.
Yeah. Little by little. So, well, I know we went a little bit longer today than what we normally like to, but at least we got through, I think, a good chunk of what we actually think the player development program structure might look like in a calendar year, because what that takes us up to now is the month of August.
Right.
And we're done playing by the end of July.
And we could talk about this for a long time.
Yep.
So it's probably something that we're going to revisit over and over again, and hopefully we get a lot of people that want to talk about it and come on the on the podcast and talk to us about it and leave us messages and things like that. So more than welcome to do that, regardless of what your opinion is. Please let us know what you think.
Definitely. And upcoming episodes, we're going to go maybe take things in a little different direction. We mentioned that we're going to have some guests come on, so we'll be talking about the recruiting process, talking about actual playing in college, talking a little bit about different pieces of youth sports, interaction with officials and interaction as parents and kids on the field, and different kinds of things that are important to you. So if you have things that you want Pat and I to talk about on the podcast, then shoot us an email, shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter, and we will be sure to include that in our conversation. And we'll include you if you want to come on. Let us know. So,
thanks, everyone. So long for now.